The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of 91.3 FM WBNY, the United Students Government at Buffalo State, or Buffalo State itself. Due to the opinionated nature of these programs, listener discretion is highly advised. If you have any questions or comments about today's program, you can give us a call at 716-878-5104.
Amelia Boynton Robinson was a passionate and impactful leader of the civil rights movement in Selma, Alabama. After graduating Tuskegee Institute, Amelia Boynton Robinson moved to Selma to work as a traveling educator for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, witnessing multifaceted disenfranchisement of Black farmers. Discriminatory practices legalized in Alabama's Constitution in the early 1900s effectively excluded Black Alabamians from politics into the 1960s. Local white authorities suppressed voting rights and limited broader voter registration efforts, making it nearly impossible for a Black person to cast a ballot. Amelia Boynton Robinson is known as one of the Courageous Eight who revived the Dallas County Voters League in the 1930s. In 1934, Amelia Boynton successfully registered to vote. Her husband, Samuel Boynton, shared her dedication to achieving civil equality in their community. Together, they fought for property and education rights, hosting regular voter registration drives. In the 1940s, the Boyntons bought a home from their friend Booker T. Washington. 1315 Lapsley Street welcomed dozens of scholars, artists, civil rights leaders, and community members for gathering. In 1964, Amelia Boynton ran for a Congress seat in the U.S. House. She was the first female African American to run for office in Alabama and the first woman of any race to run as a Democrat in the state. Despite rampant voter suppression, she received 10% of the vote. Amelia Boynton Robinson also invited Martin Luther King Jr. and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference to organize civil rights efforts from her home. Facing intense opposition from Selma's Sheriff Jim Clark, she worked with Dr. King and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference to strengthen the civil rights movement and stage protests in Selma, playing a key role in the Selma to Montgomery marches. On the day now known as Bloody Sunday, media coverage documenting state troopers and local white men's violence against peaceful marchers included images of Amelia Boynton Robinson, who had been beaten unconscious. Bloody Sunday sparked national outcry over the South's resistance to the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and drove President Lyndon B. Johnson to sign the Voting Rights Act in 1965. Amelia Boynton Robinson was a guest of honor in attendance when he signed it into law. At the age of 103, Amelia Boynton Robinson marched hand-in-hand with fellow civil rights activist Congressman John Lewis and President Obama across the Edmund Pettus Bridge to mark the 50th anniversary of the Selma to Montgomery marches.
It brings something up in your spirit, doesn't it, when you hear about Amelia
Robinson. In fact, that's what we wanted to open up today's show with. Thank you, James Brown, our producer, for doing that research and providing that information for us about this iconic woman.
We want to talk about several other iconic women that have made a difference in our country and in our life stream over the course of the past 2 centuries, the 20th and the beginning of the 21st century. So this is L. Nathan Hare. Welcome to our broadcast, focused on providing insight into events shaping our national and regional world, and the facts behind those events and policies that are shaping our world for the day and for tomorrow. Join us weekly on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. following the Good Democracy Now! Program. And of course, you know our program is live. You can call and join our discussion. We really hope that you will. Our number here again is 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. We really hope to hear from you. Let us know what you think about things that we're talking about in today's and future programs. So as I indicated, I wanted to take today's program, at least the first part of the program, and talk about some of the iconic women in our celebration of Women's History Month. Women that you may not know a lot about, but have made a tremendous difference in the life stream of our community as American people from all walks of life. The first person I wanted to mention, forget the reason why we're able to live stream to you is because we have a citizen of the 21st century here with us. That's Willie H., who does the live stream of the program. Welcome, Willie.
Well, welcome everybody to Living for the People with L. Nathan Hare.
And we don't want to forget Norm Carter, who's not here today, but he will be here on Friday. He's taking care of some things that just need to get taken care of, and we'll see him on Friday. He's our in-studio audience of one. And so I want to talk about Chandra Rhimes, who's still alive. She was born in 1970. She's a famous and highly influential American television producer and screenwriter, best known for creating hit shows like Bridgerton, Grey's Anatomy, and Scandal. I had no idea that this was the person who brought those programs to us. She is praised for diverse storytelling and representation, both of which have changed television for the better. What I mean by changing television for the better, you now see it's normal to see a number of African people, Hispanic people, Asian people, tall people,
That's correct.
fat people, short people, people that have are alternately able, and so on. You see that wide stream of American people. You see it on the television screen. You see it on the movie screens. That's because of work by people like Chandra Rhimes, who have included those people in her productions that she's written and produced. And by doing so, and because the stories were so engaging, it normalized these people in your mind. So even Willie says, wow, I didn't know that person was ultimately able. I just thought that person walked funny. I mean, it made a difference in terms of what was normal in your mind, right? And so what I wanted to do with each of these people that we talk about, I picked a quote from someone else in history that I'm applying to that person's life that I think sort of is reflective of that person's life. But before I hit that, in an interview with Oprah Winfrey on Oprah Daily, Chandra Rhimes said, quote, "We still comment when we see a woman of a different size on television. We still comment when a main character is a little bit older than we're used to seeing, or if somebody is differently able. We still comment on somebody of a different ethnicity, like it's not the norm. But in the real world, that is the norm. That's everywhere you go, all the time. You see all of these different versions of people and so on, right? You look around and you see people of all kinds. Quoting her, she says, right now, you don't see women of all kinds on television. So she's been a monumental force in helping to make that change come about. And it has come about. I mean, I don't watch his... I very rarely watch like the regular, serial type TV. The same program goes on every day of the week or whatever. I really do. I generally watch news and sports, and a movie every now and then. But when I do watch any of the regular programming with my wife, I see people that I never used to see on TV. And I always comment on that. Wow. She's on TV. He's on TV. And so on, right? It's because of the work of people like Chandra Rhimes that those walls, that we have in our minds are starting to break down, and we're beginning to normalize Americans because it's normal to be an American. So you can be it's normal to be a disabled American. It's normal to be a tall American. It's normal to be a heavyweight American. It's normal, right? And so that's what you should see in the depictions of American people in our media. So I took a quote from Beyonce Knowles, who says, "Power is not given to you. You have to take it." And if you've ever studied Beyonce Knowles' career, you know that she meant that. That's truly her. Then I went to another woman. Her name is Kalpana Chawla. She's a India woman. India in the same sense that what's her name? Holly, is an Indian woman. That's Kalpana Chawla is a Indian woman. In 1997, after being named a mission specialist on the Space Shuttle Columbia, she became the first woman of Indian descent to fly into space. The shuttle orbited around the Earth 252 times in a span of about 2 weeks. That was her second trip. I think it was her last trip to space, which came in 2003 when she and six other astronauts completed more than 80 experiments over the course of a 16-day period. She and her entire crew, this was the Challenger crew, in 2003, she and her entire crew died when the ship disintegrated upon re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. In 2020, Northrop Grumman, an aerospace defense and security company, named a spacecraft after Chawla in her memory. And I went to a quote from Amelia Earhart to sort of memorialize Chawla's memory. And Amelia Earhart said, "The most difficult thing is the decision to act. The rest is mere tenacity." I think that is reflective of Chawla's work. Then I came across Katharine Graham. I don't know, for those of you that are older, you remember her. Younger people might not remember her, but the older ones in our audience, you grew up in the Watergate area, in the Pentagon, papers area. You remember how wrenching that was, in the country. Everybody was taking sides, who's right, who's wrong, and so on, right? And of course, the Tricky Dick Nixon, the Watergate break-in, all of that was going on. Well, Katharine Graham was chairperson of the Washington Post Company for 20 years. She was one of the first female publishers of a U.S. newspaper, and certainly of a nationally, recognized newspaper. She was the first woman CEO of a Fortune 500 company. She led the Washington Post from 1963 to 1991, seeing it through its groundbreaking publication of the Pentagon Papers and the Watergate scandal. You remember that was a Bob Woodward and Leonard Bernstein. It was Katharine Graham who gave them cover. Because you remember in those days, it probably still goes on today, but more under the table. In those days, the state would come at you out front. And what are you doing? You can't be saying that stuff. You're embarrassing our country. We'll put you in jail. It was dicey, for you to be telling the truth about things like that in that era. And so that was the early 1970s. And so it was her groundbreaking support of these reporters who chased down the Pentagon Papers. Was it Daniel Ellsberg that chased down the Pentagon Papers, and how the focus was on how the Pentagon Papers got published in the first place, as opposed to focusing on what the Pentagon Papers were talking about. That's the same situation with the Watergate scandal. People focused on how information was being acquired rather than focusing on the fact that this crime had taken place. That's what Katharine Graham's work was. She supported her reporters and her corporation to take these strident stances to uncover stuff that needed to be known by the public, so that the public could have a better based understanding of what it is that we were considering and why we were considering it during that time period. She was one of the most esteemed journalistic, or the Post had become one of the most esteemed journalistic institutions in the world. And she herself, Katharine Graham, won a Pulitzer Prize in 1998 for her autobiography, Personal History, which explains or expounds on all the history we just talked about. And I went to a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt that I think sort of captures the spirit of Katharine Graham. Eleanor Roosevelt once wrote, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." Just think about that, right? You're a woman owner of a newspaper that's becoming a nationally known and internationally known newspaper. You got men that are fighting you for they want your place in the sun to be their place in the sun. So they're fighting you all the time. And she has to muscle up, against that. And what she had to constantly keep in the forefront of her mind is that I'm not less because I'm a woman. I am a woman, period. I'm an American, period. I'm a human being, period. And I don't have to explain or justify or prove anything about my worth. My worth is innate. And that's what she meant by no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. Then I went to this lady's record. I just really got into. Her name is Wilma Mankiller. I don't know, Willie. I don't know what that made you feel like when you saw it. Her name was Mankiller, right? And in 1985, she's an Oklahoma native. She became the first woman to be the principal chief of the Cherokee Nation, which was the largest tribe in the United States in the 1970s and 1980s. She received her picture was on a Time 100 cover during her decade-long chiefdom from 1985 to 1995. Hear her record. During this decade, she was the chief of the Cherokee Nation. Unemployment rates doubled. Employment rates doubled. Tribal enrollment grew. Infant mortality dropped. Right. She did the things that are the benchmarks that you want to see every administration, not just the Cherokee administration, but the administration of the United States. You would want the United States to say that unemployment dropped by half, that employment increased by a quarter. That infant mortality rates dropped by 80%. And that's what you want your presidential administration to be about. Not telling you about we had an investigation into the investigation by the Justice Department, against Republican members of Congress helping the January 6th insurrectionists. That's not what you want to be the things you're talking about as the resume of your administration. Her resume is just outstanding. I went to a comment made or a quote made by Anne Frank. She said, how wonderful it is that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world. That seems to me to characterize Wilma Mankiller. What a name. And then there is Danielle Luna. I didn't even know this woman until this week. She only lived about 33, 34 years from 1945 to 1979. But before there was a Naomi Campbell or a Tyra Banks, there was Danielle Luna. She was born Peggy Ann Freeman. She's hailed as the first black supermodel. And she was the first African-American model to appear on the cover of the British Vogue magazine. That was in March of 1966. I always stumble when we do these kinds of historical, black first, black facts, not that that's all we're talking about here, but when we do these first and these facts, type reports, when we're talking about a black person in 1966, and you're talking about just now, we've been here since 1520, at least 1619. Right, so we've been here at least 400 years, maybe 500 years. I and our ancestors have been here. And it's until 1966 before somebody appeared on the cover of a magazine. Before somebody was able to fly an airplane. It's just it wrenches, and it wrenches for a number of reasons. Most importantly is young people are so disconnected. They're into social media, Facebook, and tweeting, and whatever these different social media forums are, and they're in the moment. They don't remember, the fight that was just 30, 40, 50 years ago. Where everything was on the line all the time. People being murdered on international television. In fact, the only reason why you have a Voter Rights Act and a Civil Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voter Rights Act of 1965, is because the entire world saw these Americans with these baseball bats and dogs and these power hoses, and pistols and shotguns beating on these African people on world TV. That embarrassed the United States so much. Lyndon Johnson had no choice. but to sign the Voter Rights Act of 1965. I mean, that this is still we're still talking about first, for something that happened 40 or 50 years ago, right? For things that people have been here for 400 years.
Right.
So that just strikes a chord in me every time we have this discussion.
Well, it strikes a chord in me also, Mr. Hare, because I could have heard this stuff back at least in the 70s, and that a lot of this stuff I'm just now resurfacing. I didn't know about the first black
supermodel, right?
And a lot of things I didn't know about. I just got seeing a lot of
and
things.
you were a child, you were a young child, at this time, so you would not have been present with it, so you grew up as this inclusion, was maturing as you were growing up.
Well, no. As I was growing up, Mr. Hare, you got to remember, as I was growing up, the only thing I saw was Michael Jackson and Bill Cosby.
That was revolution for us. When they had the shingling type of television program, where you had African people that were involved in presenting these variety, type shows. That was like revolutionary.
So I was lucky to see that. I was actually lucky.
There you go. Right.
So as I indicated, Danielle Luna died when she was 33. We didn't get to see as much from her as we would have liked.
But a quote that I came up with came from Mae West, and her quote was, "You only live once, but if you do it right, once is enough." And I'm pretty sure that you can say that about Danielle Luna. She only got to live 33 years, but boy, she got a lot of 33 years that she lived. Right? Then there's Hattie McDaniel. I don't know if you remember her, because maybe in your era, you all were too, enthused with how powerful you were, in your time period. But Hattie McDaniel, do you remember Gone with the Wind, the movie?
I remember Gone with the Wind.
You remember the woman that played the maid in Gone with the Wind?
Yeah.
That was Hattie McDaniel, right? And she received an Oscar for her performance in 1940 when she played the role of Mammy in Gone with the Wind. Sometimes, there are unintended consequences that result from our actions. We may have a noble goal, but we actually produce something that is the opposite of the goal that we're trying to achieve. And so that happened with this era in Hollywood. The NAACP and similar organizations lobbied Hollywood to stop casting black people in these stereotypical roles. They were only like Cleveland, for Jack Benny. His butler was Cleveland. And although he was comical and funny, but he was subservient all the time. Right? That's the role that he was cast in, and that's the role that African people were largely cast in all the time in Hollywood's portrayals. And so the NAACP began to muscle up to react against that. We want you to stop doing that and cast people in normal roles that you cast white people in. Well, the result of that was Hollywood said, well, if y'all don't like us doing that, we'll just not cast you at all. And so even though she won an Oscar, she had fewer and fewer opportunities to perform because there were no roles for her to perform in. The roles they wanted her to perform in, black people said they didn't want to see black folks cast in those roles. And the roles that they wanted to see people enrolled in or performing in, the Hollywood wasn't willing to do that because they didn't think they could sell those movies. Remember what this is at the end of the day. This is a business. And if they do movies that they think people aren't going to watch, they're not going to make any money on those movies. So they won't make movies that they think people aren't going to watch.
So that Sidney Poitier movie.
Well, he was what do you call it? A pathfinder. He was a breaker. He opened pathways. Remember the movie? I don't know if you saw it. To Serve with Love.
Yeah, that was a great movie. I love that.
Right. Now, this movie didn't have a lot of moving parts in it. You know, it's a classroom with the same kids in the classroom all the time, right? And it was a young lady who basically fell in love with her teacher.
Right.
Not fell in love like, you know, somebody gonna have a romantic tryst with. She just fell in love with him like, man, this guy, you know, I learned so much from him. He's my dude, you know, and so on, right? And but the portrayal of that and the dignity with which Sidney Poitier portrayed that role, you know, it really carried what the intent was of the author of that screenplay.
Right.
And because it was so powerful and it was so authentic, it opened up doors that had been closed previously.
Right.
So now people started trying. Robert Cope, for example, got Bill Cosby into the role of sort of like the assistant, you know, super detective, you know, and so on, right?
That was another one, Bill Cosby.
Yep.
Detective show.
I Spy, I think was the name of that production.
For me, that was kind of like a first to see a almost like a black superhero.
Right.
Or ordinary.
He was like Superfly, only, you know, without the long hair. Without the long hair and the leather coat. Right. And so Hattie McDaniel, she broke ground, though. You know, she won an Oscar. Even though she was in a stereotypical role, she won an Oscar for that role. And so she actually received two posthumous stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. So she didn't lose her place in the minds of people in Hollywood, even though very few roles were produced for people like her to be able to play it.
I seen that, and she was really good. She was really believable, authentic. She was really good.
Yep. So I went to a quote from Ruth Bader Ginsburg, you know, another one of our path breakers, right? And her quote that I applied to Hattie McDaniel's life was, quote, fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you.
Right.
That's what Hattie McDaniel did. She was fighting for place in Hollywood, but she tried to do it in a way that wouldn't push people away from her. It would create a way for people to come to her and join her in what she was trying to get done. And then we just talked about Amelia Boynton Robinson, you know, at the forefront of the civil rights movement in Georgia and Alabama. She's most recognized for the brutal photographs. This is the soundbite that you heard that James Braun produced for us. Recognized for the brutal photographs showing her being attacked by officers during the 1965 Bloody Sunday March from Selma to Montgomery. A young boy named L. Nathan Hare was in that march.
Oh, wow.
Found his way into a local jail for throwing his hands and getting people's feet and clubs knocked upside his head.
Mr. Hare said this, so you was part of that historical?
1965.
Wow.
Old man today, but young man then.
Wow.
Right. But that's a whole other story, right? My father had to come, my uncle had to come and get me.
Lucky you survived that.
Lucky I had an uncle that had a car, and survived that. I'll tell you that story another day. But the Selma March to Montgomery was an iconic force, in me, a transformational kind of thing that took place inside of me. Anyway, Amelia Boynton Robinson also championed voting rights for African Americans, and her efforts and the attack on her were depicted in Ava DuVernay's 2014 film that was entitled Selma. And I went to a quote from Dolly Parton. Now, forgive me, I take quotes from, I read everybody, so I take quotes from a lot of places and whatnot, right? Dolly Parton made this quote that I thought applied to Robinson's life. She said, storms make trees. Storms make trees take deeper roots. So all of that pressure that she had to go through, all of the confrontations, the conflicts, all of the abuse and whatnot that she had to endure being beaten. She was beaten on international TV. She was one of the people that you saw being clubbed and being hosed and whatnot, being knocked over, having dogs, up in her face, having police, selling wolf tickets at her, putting their hands and grabbing her by the hair, and that sort of stuff. But she took that pressure, the storms, in her life, and they allowed her to grow deeper roots, which made her stronger. She lived to be 104 years old. We should all drink some of that soup. Then there's Maria Elena Salinas. She's heralded as the voice of Hispanic America by the New York Times. She's the first Latinx woman to receive a Lifetime Achievement Emmy Award. She had a 36 run on Univision TV, an American Spanish language TV company. I know that you all have seen stuff produced by Univision. They're internationally known. She had not only was she a news broadcaster, but she also had an investigative series called The Real Story. And she left Univision, I believe, in 2017. She said, "I am grateful for having had the privilege to inform and empower the Latino community through the work my colleagues and I do with such passion." In 2022, she joined ABC News as a contributor. She still does work for ABC News. She has an autobiography entitled "I Am My Father's Daughter." And I took a quote from Judy Garland that I thought was applicable to Maria Elena Salinas' life. It's quote, it says, "Always be a first-rate version of yourself instead of a second-rate version of somebody else." I love that. I mean, she's being the first-rate, version of herself as a news broadcaster, as the host of a investigative report television program, a 40-year career that she's had in the media, standing as a Latinx woman, not as trying to act as somebody trying to pretend to be Barbara Walters. She just authentically was Maria Elena Salinas. And I thought that she's still alive, by the way. She was born in 1954. The second last person in my report for today is Mahalia. I know we got a minute or so before we break. Mahalia Jackson, a powerhouse singer. She is hailed as the queen of gospel. And while music fans are familiar with songs and hymns such as "Go Tell It on the Mountain" or "Take My Hand, Precious Lord," what you may not know is that Jackson played a significant role in the March on Washington in 1963. She not only was a good friend of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but she also was the inspiration behind Dr. King's iconic "I Have a Dream" speech. According to reporter and advisor Clarence Jones, he said that when you hear in the audience somebody says, "Tell him about the dream, Martin. Tell him about the dream." That was Mahalia Jackson that was yelling that out and made Martin Luther King remember that when he was giving that speech that came to be known as the "I Have a Dream" speech. It was what he was remembering when he talked about "I Have a Dream," that one day, et cetera, right? But I went to a quote from Michelle Obama that I thought epitomized Mahalia Jackson's life. She said, quote, "I have learned that as long as I hold fast to my beliefs and values and follow my own moral compass, then the only expectations I need to live up to are my own." And I think that epitomizes Mahalia Jackson. The last person I want to speak to before you go to the break is Constance Baker Motley. She has a long list of historic achievements. She became in 1964 the first African-American woman to serve in the New York State Senate. She became the first black female federal judge. She won significant civil rights victories in the Supreme Court, like the writing the original complaint in Brown versus Board of Education. She represented Dr. King. Motley also paved the way for Ketanji Brown Jackson, the very first black woman to sit on the U.S. Supreme Court. And let me just give you the quote that I took this from Sheryl Sandberg, who is a woman with a wealth portfolio of $1.6 billion, Willie.
Wow.
$1.6 billion. She's an American technology executive, philanthropist, and writer. She said, quote, in the future, there will be no female leader. There will just be leaders. I love it. Thank you all. We got to take a quick break. We look forward to talking to you inside the break. Here at Living for the People, 91.3 FM, WBNY.
Tune in 91.3 FM WBNY Mondays 6 p.m. for Mental Health Versus, where Carl Shalahorn mashes up music and mental health in a way you've never heard before. Carl dives into topics such as trauma, depression, and anxiety with compelling guests and captivating music. Mental Health Versus, a show both entertaining and informative. Check out Mental Health Versus Mondays at 6 p.m. on 91.3 FM WBNY.
All right, welcome back. This is L. Nathan here, your host here for Living for the People, 91.3 FM WBNY. Looking forward to hearing from you guys. The number here again is 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. And of course, our permanent citizen in the 21st century, Willie H. is here doing the live stream of the program. Welcome back, Willie.
Welcome, everybody, to Living for the People with L. Nathan Hare.
So a quick note. This was not what I intended to talk about today, but I just wanted to put this quick note in here. This was an article written in the Washington Post by Josh Hawley and Devin Barrett, entitled "The Judge, U.S. Judge says Pence must give some testimony in the January 6th probe."
This splitting hairs that goes on, in this country is intriguing at best. A federal judge has ruled that former Vice President Mike Pence must provide testimony to prosecutors, according to people familiar with the matter. Although Pence can remain silent on topics that deal specifically with his role in Congress on January 6, 2021, when a formal tabulation of the presidential election results was interrupted by a violent pro-Trump mob. Special Counsel Jack Smith subpoenaed Pence for his testimony, and both Pence and former President Donald Trump fought the demand on two separate legal grounds. Now, I want you to understand the logic here. Mike Pence says out of his own mouth that Donald Trump said things that were irresponsible, that were dangerous, that endangered him, endangered his family, and so on, and that history will judge him. That this was a reprehensible thing for him to do. That's what Mike Pence said. But when it came time to do the legal, accounting for, the behavior that was engaged in on January 6th, and they called on Pence, we need to hear your testimony about what you were hearing and what you saw during that time period. Oh, no, I can't do that. Why can't you do it? Well, I was operating as the head of the legislature, at that time. How are we the head of the legislature? Well, the Constitution says that when it's time to formally count the Electoral College votes that were cast for each state, to the Electoral College. In that role, I'm the presider of the joint session of Congress. So I'm a part of the legislative branch when I'm doing that. So since I was a part of the legislative branch on that day, the bad stuff that was being done by Trump in everybody's face that I was standing right there watching, I can't talk to you about that. I can't give you witness testimony about something as critically important as that. That's what's going on right now. Trump argued that executive privilege shields him because presidential discussions are privileged. But whatever discussions were going on with Pence at that time period were about Donald Trump trying to get a crime to be committed. He's trying to get Mike Pence to submit false names as members of the Electoral College in Arizona and Wisconsin and Michigan and so on, so that they could deliver the votes from those states to Trump rather than deliver them to Joe Biden that they originally or actually cast for. And you're telling me that he's engaging in a crime. That's what the conversation is Donald Trump engaging in a crime, and you're telling me that your executive privilege prevents you from being able to reveal the fact that Donald Trump is asking you to engage in a crime? That just doesn't make any sense. So the other side of this discussion was that Pence's lawyers were arguing, as I indicated before, that he had a constitutional protection from having to testify because he was a member of the legislature during that 4-hour period, wherever it was. The U.S. District Court Judge James Bosberg ruled in essence against the executive privilege claim, which has now failed numerous times for many Trump witnesses. But the judge also upheld part of the legislative claim, finding that the speech or debate clause of the Constitution does prevent prosecutors from grilling Pence about his duties in Congress on January 6th, according to the people familiar with this ruling, who spoke on condition of anonymity. It was not immediately clear Pence or his legal team, or Trump's legal team, will appeal the ruling, but you know they are going to appeal this thing. That's going to make this drag out even longer, which was first reported on CNN. So anyway, I just wanted to get that note and to understand that distinction of what's going on here. Pence for that period of time, the joint session of Congress was meeting, he was standing as the presider over the joint session of Congress. But he's the vice president of the United States, the second-ranking officer in the executive branch of the United States of America. How can he claim that he's both the second-ranking officer in the executive branch of the government and simultaneously he's only a legislator, on January 6th in his role as presiding over the joint session of Congress? But that's what's going on here. That's the obfuscation that is constantly going on. And Donald Trump and his lawyers keep looking for, here's a little loophole over here, here's a little vague thing over here, and using those things to provoke another lawsuit or another review or another appeal, and so on. So anyway, I wanted to talk today. We got about 20 minutes now. Took too long on that. On the second soundbite, which is on gun violence, another mass child murder taking place in this country. And you all, I'm sure, are aware that 6 people were killed by a woman yesterday, and or was it the day before yesterday? No, I think it was yesterday that she killed these people in Florida. And I don't know how to put my words around this. Three of the people that were killed were 9-year-old children. All three were 9 years old. Can you just imagine if you get a phone call and somebody tells you that your third grader is dead? That somebody just blew the doors out of the school. The first thing the Republicans did was say, well, she came through a door. Why was that door open? Who was neglectful and left the door open? Didn't leave a door open. There's a video that shows that this woman walked up to the door and blasted through the door several times, blowing out all the windows and the locks on the door. That's how the shooter got in. They could get in any building in the United States if they came in with Gatling guns and so on, right? So this article was written by this quote that I'm speaking to was stated by Reverend Maxwell Frost, who is, they refer to him as the Generation Z congressman. I assume Generation Z are those people who were born since the year 2000. Would that be correct?
I think you might be right. I'm not.
Well, that's who I'm quoting. Anyway, because he's 25 years old, so he would have been born like 1998. So anyway, he's claimed as being a Generation Z congressperson. He slammed his GOP counterparts as cowards in a blistering speech on the floor of the House following the latest school mass shooting in Nashville, Tennessee, not in Florida, that left 6 people dead, 3 of them children. He says, I rise today because I am furious. Angry that these 3 kids died today in Nashville, Tennessee. angry that hundreds of parents had to cry their eyes out today, not knowing if their child would come home from school. And angry that we have to live day after day when we turn on the news and see rampant gun violence claiming life after life. Frost blamed Republican lawmakers he referred to as bought and paid for by the NRA, the National Rifle Association, that puts profits over people and over human lives. He ripped his Republican colleagues as cowards who wasted our time passing a parental rights bill or Bill of Rights and don't give a darn about that wasn't a word, right? Don't give a darn about the rights of children to go to their classrooms without fear of being gunned down due to senseless gun violence. It was likely that at this moment the next mass shooter is. This is what he said. It's likely that at this moment the next mass shooter is planning their next shooting. What will this chamber do about it? Frost said last week he filed a bill to create a federal office of gun violence prevention. He says, quote, there are 3 kids are dead today, and every day we wait, 100 more people will die. I pray to God that there are some Republicans in this chamber that can help support my legislation to save lives. So I went to another article on this issue and this subject written by Marla Paul and Marianne Mason for Northwestern Now. A continuation of the federal ban could have prevented 30 public mass shootings. Now, when they say something could have prevented something, what they mean is if you had left the legislation that the assault weapons ban in place in 2004, if it didn't expire, if you let it stay in place, and then you look forward in terms of the number of people that were being killed by gun violence in the decade before the expiration of the assault weapons ban. If you look at how many people would have been killed in the 10-year period that followed the expiration of the assault weapons ban, that difference would have been 30 less mass shootings over the course of that time. Now, that may seem like hypothetical, but look at what's happened since that time. Since that time, the number of mass shootings has gone up 2 or 3-fold over that time period. Why? Because as soon as the weapons ban expired, all of these whatever type people you call them ran out and started buying. Let me give me some assault rifle. Let me give me 3 assault rifles. Let me buy a surface-to-air missile. Let me get a tank. And just ran out and started getting as much stuff as they could. And every time somebody said something about trying to restrain, the number of these mass killing type machines that were being sold to people, when somebody started to talk about that, they would go out and buy more. On the logic that if I don't buy it now, I won't be able to buy it tomorrow. And so we went from a time period when there were maybe 170, 180 guns in the hands of people in 2004. Now there's something in the area of 420 million guns in the hands of, I'm talking about assault type weapons. These super destructive type weapons. They got guns that look, pistols that look like rifles. The barrels on the pistol are like 12 or 13 inches long. And so on. So they look almost like rifles. They've got so many of this kind of stuff that's being sold to people and people that are buying it. We have to ask ourselves better questions. It's not just that these gun manufacturers are selling this stuff. Obviously, we know that they have no morality whatsoever. You can't count on them to do anything more than rob people. But the people that are buying these weapons, who are they? What are we doing to help get those people to stop doing this?
Well, it's a market. I think it's a strong market because not only they selling to those people, but they're even selling to people like me who don't really want a gun, but you see it all the time. Oh, you better protect yourself because others are.
And that's true, but I always have to challenge people when they say that. They say that they get the gun to protect themselves. But where's your gun when danger comes to you?
Right.
If danger comes to you, you're walking down the street, somebody confronts you, your gun's usually not with you. You know, if danger comes to whatever they call it when they drive-by break-ins, whatever the word is they use for breaking into people's houses and whatnot. When somebody breaks in your house, where's your gun? Is it under your pillow? Is it in your sock? Is it in your pajamas? More than likely it's not. So the likelihood that you're going to have the gun in a position where you can use it to defend yourself when the danger comes is slim and none. You're not going to have the gun. So the only thing you can do with the gun is after somebody confronts you, after somebody assaults you, after somebody threatens you, and so on, puts you in a sense of being in danger. Now you go get your weapon. You got to go to the street and hunt the people that were endangering you. Well, now you're no longer a victim, are you?
No.
You're the perpetrator. Okay. So we're lying to ourselves, or not shouldn't say lying. We are kidding ourselves if we think that having a gun is going to prevent us from being the victims of gun violence. Because the likelihood that you're going to have the gun in a position where you can go to it when the gun violence comes your way is very rare. That you're going to be in that position. The situation is going to go down that way. You're just going to be a person who owns a gun and got shot. That's really where you're going to be. So a federal assault ban was highly effective, according to this article, in reducing public mass shootings, according to a report by the Northwestern Medicine Institute. The study found that the federal assault weapons ban that included a ban on large capacity magazines. Those are where the bullets are in the magazine in the gun, right? So in the old days, they had guns that had 30 to 100 bullets you could put into the magazine of a gun. So you could just sit there and all day just keep squeezing the trigger and firing. So they limited the number of bullets that could be in the magazine of a rifle to 10. So that's not great, but it's better to have only 10 bullets that come out of the gun than to have 100 bullets that come out of the gun without you having to reload. And so banning large capacity magazines was a part of the assault weapons ban bill. The study leveraged the passage and expiration of the federal assault weapons ban to estimate the number of mass shootings that were prevented during the ban, as well as the number of shootings that would have been prevented had the ban remained in place. The study authors estimate that the ban prevented 10 public mass shootings during the decade it was in place. Before it was allowed to expire. The bill would have prevented 30 public mass shootings that killed 339 people and injured an additional 1,139 people over the next decade. After it expired. The political climate at the time that the weapons ban bill was passed required a sunset clause in order to get the bill passed. This is the trick, that gets done. So in 1993 or 94, you had a consensus in Congress to get an assault weapons ban bill passed, but you also had people who said we won't let you get to the threshold to break the filibuster unless you put a sunset on that bill. A sunset is a point at which that bill expires, and then you'd have to reauthorize that bill all over again. And of course, in 2004, we were under the George Bush administration, and we couldn't get the consensus to reauthorize the assault weapons ban, so it expired. And now we're in the place that we're in right now.
Mr. Hare, you got to call him.
Okay, let me take that call real quick. Hi, caller, are you there?
Yes, I am here. Thank you very much. And I don't want to detract from the horrificness of mass shootings. We've had our own local experience, and it's something that's just happening in every community.
Yep.
And I think, though, and I think you touched on this, is the day-to-day gun violence and loss of life that we have. And to harken back to, I think we're talking now almost 30 years ago, when the CDC was allowed to investigate and look into morbidity and mortality of all flavors, which included gun violence. And they've had a published report that the mere possession of a firearm in your household increased the odds that someone would have an encounter with that, with gun violence. And that is what ended the CDC's ability to do research in those areas because Congress lashed out hugely and revoked, and it's a stipulation in all contracts, unless it's been revoked, I think more recently, that they could not do any research related to gun violence at all.
It was completely puzzling. How in the world can the CDC not be authorized to do research on something that's killing hundreds of people a day, every single day in the United States? You know, we're on the 29th of March. So I guess there's roughly 90 days that have taken place in the course of this year. We've had something in the area of 80 or so mass killings in the United States in just the first 90 days of this year.
Yes, but what's the actual number of deaths from gun violence total, separate from mass shootings?
I don't have that number, but it's in the several hundred.
It dwarfs. I don't care how many mass shootings we've had. It doesn't come anywhere close to the now normalized gun violence that occurs in our city.
So when you talk about it from that perspective, I have a cousin that lives in Chicago. We were on the phone. Three murders took place in three separate places while we were on the phone.
Yeah.
In Chicago.
Right.
And so I'm telling him, baby, you gotta come out of there. You can't stay there. You gotta come someplace where they don't do stuff like that.
Yeah, but look, we're not a poster child in that regard either. I don't even know what our numbers are anymore. We used to publish it. We don't.
Right. But you figure we average somewhere between 45 to 55 murders, a year.
We used to be 50. That was years ago. I have no idea what it is now. I have no idea. The city does not publish that anymore and show which cases were solved and unsolved.
Your point is the one that I'm hoping that we can start to get some muscularity around. The fact that we have so many people, I'm not talking about the ones where there's 3 or 4 people killed. I'm talking about the ones where there's one person killed.
Right.
There's two people that get wounded.
So, I think the message in the interim is that people should really look at the data. But it's hard. I don't know if the I don't know if that restriction's been lifted from the CDC or not. There was some talk about it because it's obviously ridiculous. And I think only until we lift the cloud on while you may think you get protection from carrying a weapon, such as a gun, that you actually just increase the odds that you will use it amongst your family members.
You're just teasing yourself. You're making yourself feel better because you own a gun.
Right.
But the reality is you're not going to have that gun on you or in a position that when danger comes to you, you got the gun in your hand and can immediately use it to defend yourself. That's not the way the world works.
Yes, but I think the more insidious angle is that, unfortunately, we are both rational and irrational beings, and there's plenty of times when, under the right emotional situations, our irrational side takes over, and a short-term benefit, which is in domestic violence or whatever it might be, that we would use that weapon inappropriately, that we will regret for the rest of our lives.
I told Willie this, several months ago, that I had an experience where one of my friends, close friends, his brother was beaten up, and he calls on me at 11:30 at night to come and help him get vengeance and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
And so we go, and it takes us till 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, find these people, now we're out here fighting and so on, and I pull my gun out, and I'm about to shoot this guy. Luckily for me, I was raised by my father. You know when your father's face shows up in front of your face, and now you can't see anything except your father's face.
Wow.
And my father was like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Right? And so I backed. Now I hit the guy a couple more times, but I backed away. I backed away. But I had 4 guns, that I owned at that time. I sat down with my father about 4 o'clock in the morning. I told him what I had done. He said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "Daddy, I found out something about myself that I didn't know until this happened."
And I want to admit, it's easy for me to preach living maybe in a neighborhood and being white, that I don't feel I have to defend myself as aggressively, as assertively, because of, we know the discrimination that has occurred through law enforcement and others. So this gets tricky, I think, particularly those who have been more persecuted, to be able to tell people, no, you shouldn't have a gun, or you should really think through that maybe there should be some other modality. But some of the times it's viewed as a survival. I mean, and so having a gun seems to be the right solution. So I don't know how to. I can't really address that personally because fortunately I don't.
I do know this. Whatever you do with that gun, if it didn't happen right in the moment when you were being confronted, you were going out to do something illegal. You went to that gun to go hunt somebody, and that can't be the right thing for us to do. We got to figure out another way. I really appreciate your call. You brought a good issues up.
Thank you very much as well.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
So listen, guys, we're at the end of our hour. We got more that
we'll be talking about on this subject. This is not going to go away. So we'll be continuing to visit on this. We'll see you all on Friday here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM, WBNY. We'll see you all then.